In the spring, I had Carrie Maffoni with me, and but my main job is really working with Senate Bill 191 and trying to figure out what we're doing with our evaluation. I'm just really excited because apparently this is the group that has semi-opted into this. So now that you've opted in, we're just going to go ahead and lock the doors and make sure that you can't escape anything that we say today. One of the things that we said in the spring, and then I will let the peers that are here this morning continue the rest of the conversation, but one of the things that I said in the spring is absolutely true. This is absolutely meant not to be a gotcha. It's meant to be a collaborative partnership with teachers and educators in this district. So we're really excited to be able to have this opportunity to be able to work with the primary and the intermediate folks. So I'm going to introduce Carrie Maffoni, and then there's two other peers that will be introduced and are going to be talking a little bit with you this morning as well.
So again, we want to reiterate, we're so excited to be here, and Todd and I were out at Mount Carbon yesterday, and when Tracy, the principal, had said that the Bradfords are participating, everybody kind of perked up. So we appreciate your involvement in the program, and for myself, as I came out last spring, I am a teacher in Jeffco, a veteran teacher of over 20 years, most of that classroom experience, but I've been an instructional coach and then a peer evaluator through Strategic Comp for the past 2 years. So, and I'll introduce my partners in the work this year.
Hi, I'm Shannon Carlson, and I've been in education about 15 years. Most of that time has been in ESL, either as an ESL teacher or as a resource teacher. Some of you might recognize my face. I was actually a resource teacher last year, and I worked a lot with Jerry. So I have some familiarity with the Bradfords. I don't think I've worked with many of you, though. So it's a different lens for me coming into this building. I also have classroom teaching experience in 4th and 6th grade.
And I'm Heidi Bradbury, and I've been in education for 17 years. I spent a lot of time at the 4th grade level. I was a specialist teacher integrating the arts, so I worked with K through 6. And I also most recently worked in a 2nd grade classroom. I've been an instructional coach and a master teacher through strategic compensation, and now I'm back coming into this role as a peer evaluator.
All right. So honestly, we just want to take 15 minutes or so and then leave the majority of the time for you to ask any logistical questions of us. So our agenda, really briefly, we'll go over program outcomes, which Todd and I shared briefly last spring, but for those of you that are still kind of wavering whether you're wanting to opt in or not, we'll quickly review those, give you a program overview of how we envision this rolling out along with the timeline, and then open it up for your questions. So the district has come up with these 2 bullet points around the evaluation process, and I added these into the slides. I thought it was an interesting mesh when you think about the work with Senate Bill 191 and teacher effectiveness, and truly Todd's initiatives, or I should call them Todd's initiatives, but his office's initiative. But for the 3 of us, we work under the umbrella of teacher effectiveness. So the evaluation process should honor the belief that effective employees increase student achievement and provide a roadmap for actionable, honest, and timely feedback leading to a district-wide increase in excellence. And I think the bottom one relates directly to the work of the peer evaluation program, in a sense that by having those multiple lenses, that working alongside your administrator and having a peer in your room, having that consistent feedback that is timely and transparent, because you see that feedback immediately, you're able to increase your effectiveness and in the end, increase student achievement. Again, the program provides multiple data points, and again, the timely feedback that allows you to adjust your instruction. And that, after working in strategic comp schools for the past 2 years, that adjustment of instruction has been the fun part to watch, is that if I went in, provided feedback, or another peer did, it was interesting to watch that self-reflection of the teacher, to be able to, oh, tomorrow when I'm working with my guided reading group, I'm going to try that, or I'm going to tweak that. So I think that's the fun part of this, is if you're kind of that, you can experiment a little bit. So the peer program is rooted truly in 2 beliefs. And I'll let you talk for this one.
So reflection leads to growth. We have to take a look in the mirror, or someone has to hold the mirror up for us in order for us to see what our practice looks like. When I think about past information that I received on evaluations, are you recording? I'm scared. This better be good. I sometimes got feedback that said, continue to use technology. And I thought, well, why would they put that? All I have is an overhead projector in my room and maybe a listening center. But that was a school goal. That didn't help me grow as a teacher in the moment. And so this kind of reflection that you'll be getting through feedback, through timely feedback, will specifically meet your needs, and it will help further your instruction so that you can meet the needs of kids. Because at the end of the day, you're here for the kids, right? And I'm so thankful that you as a group are ready to receive some of that honest, reflective feedback.
And the second belief is that collaboration is essential. And this is one thing throughout my educational career that I wish I had. It's that real collaborative effort with the people that were evaluating me to make my practice better. For me, evaluation has always been a point in time process. It's never been points in time over time. So that didn't lead to that collaboration. It was more, here's your evaluation, here's what it is, boom, done. And you have a few goals, but they're not meaningful goals because it's usually at the end of the year, you're going on summer break and you forget them by the time fall comes around. So this process is really meant to be a conversation between all the people that are evaluating you and you as the teacher.
So, logistics, so the nuts and bolts. Each one of you will be assigned an evaluation team, co-evaluators, whether it's your administrator and a peer, or in some situations it might be a peer-peer situation. During the course of the year, you'll have 2 formal observations, one each semester. The formal observations will follow the cycle of a pre-conference where we'll sit down with you, have a discussion about practice, kind of flow of the lesson, what you anticipate. We'll come in and do the observation. During that observation, we take notes. Those notes are then sent to you within 24 hours, so you have that, again, that timely feedback. Notes are a little bit different than the informal piece, just the notes are the lengthy, it's kind of the gathering of the evidence, so that's why it takes a little bit longer, and we want to make sure that they make sense, because sometimes when you're capturing them in the moment, it's just kind of this conscious flow of thought. And then we will come back to you for that post-conference, and the post-conference will be an opportunity to sit down and again reflect and collaborate on the lesson that was observed. All the observations, both the first and the second semester one, because they are announced, we will plan those with you so you can decide what, and again, we'll talk with your administrator if you have a school goal. Maybe you want one of your observations to be specifically about writing, if that is your school goal, or math, or something. And again, we would prearrange that with you, so it isn't a surprise. Informal observations then are those moments in time that over the course of the year, 10, 15 minutes, we come in, we sit down, they are unannounced, but they allow us to provide that instant feedback. We come in, we sit down, we have our computers, and on the ESS system, we import all the feedback so that at lunch, planning, that night, 2 weeks from now, whatever, you can go in and surface the feedback from ESS. And again, leading to that reflection piece. And then we always say that we always enjoy and appreciate those continued conversations. In the spring, and I think I kind of forget when we were at so many schools what we said and what schools, but for our work, our number of teachers that we're working with this year is not a huge number. I mean, it's a big number, but smaller than what I was used to as a peer evaluator through strategic comp. So the opportunity to debrief the feedback is the gift, I think, of this little offshoot of peer evaluation. that if we've left feedback and you want to meet with us the next time we're in the building or shoot us an email, we'll come back out and have that conversation. Because as you guys know, when you think about times that you've self-reflected, and then the work that I did through peer evaluation, it's really about the conversation. Isn't necessarily about the feedback, it's really about that conversation and the opportunity to dialogue about the feedback.
Can I add something about the multiple times? That's the part where if there's a full moon and things are going crazy for that point in time, well, thank goodness someone will be back around, your peer will be back around, or your administrator will be back around to give you more feedback. And I think that's a nice piece so that you're not just getting one picture throughout the whole year. Multiple snapshots over time that add into a whole body of evidence to show how you are doing as an educator.
And just to piggyback on that, I would say when I think about my last 2 years, that happened quite a few times. I'd walk in and it just wasn't the time for me to be there. So I'd walk out, knowing that the next time I was in the building, it was, you know, I could target that classroom or be in that classroom. So.
You know, just a comment, Gene and I, you know, have been doing the evaluations and that, but I know myself, and I don't know, Gene, you can chime in too, have not been as good about informally when we walk through, leaving something in your mailbox, emailing immediately to let you know, gee, I saw you doing this, it's really great, or let's talk about this. We walk through and a lot, but don't give that feedback right away. So this will, you know, help all of us give that immediate feedback, which I think teachers appreciate.
So both the formal and the informal observations lead to a final evaluation, which we all are used to. I think the exciting piece about this program is that, as Heidi said, instead of these 2 moments in time, these big formal observations, there are multiple threads that weave those two formals and then all the multiple informals together that leads to a complete, comprehensive body of evidence of your work, just like you do with kids. It isn't just about 2 moments in time, it's about all that informal data that you store in your head and in your notes and all of that. So the other piece that the program lends itself to is that the final evaluation is co-written. So if you have been assigned to an administrator and a peer, for instance, if it was Jean and myself, we would sit down and co-create your final evaluation for, again, that comprehensive lens. If you have a peer-to-peer situation, for instance, if it's Heidi and Shannon, they'll sit down and write the co-evaluation. The check and balance in all of this is that it's never fielded off to you until your administrator has seen it, looked over it, made sure that it looks comprehensive, gels with what he's thinking.
And again, is it just the 3 areas? You want to comment on what areas you guys are looking at?
Yep, so the rubric has 3 areas: professional preparation, professional techniques, and professional responsibilities. That third section is the one that we do not have any input into. That's your, the way you function as a school, how you contribute to the school goals, all of that. So that is something that if you have a peer-to-peer situation, Sam or Jean would simply say, as Heidi's populating the document, these are the ratings, and she goes in and just tabs them down on ESS. So, but I will say that after 2 years and close to 200 final evaluations sitting with administrators, you get to the end, and somebody asked, my gosh, how do you do that? It's such a lengthy process. Well, it's just very similar to your work with your students. You know, you kind of reach the end and you know. And if we've done our job of providing you feedback along the way, there are no surprises. So it is this, it's a very collaborative effort as we kind of journey throughout the year. So our timeline, as we think about our implementation here at your 2 schools, the week of August 16th, so we know next week you're in the business of getting kids in school and settled. That next week, we would like to come in and just do classroom visits, and we'll definitely, you know, with Sam and Jean, figure out what that looks like. It won't be every day since we're in 6 different buildings, but an opportunity just to walk through. It's an opportunity too that, great if you want to introduce us I mean, by then I would think that you'll know who your evaluator is, or your evaluators, to stop and introduce your kids. At one of my schools, I appreciated the principal came in, walked me through and introduced me. Otherwise, for me, it was this tall redheaded lady that, the kids were like, who are you? And so, our work that week truly is just to acquaint ourselves in the buildings and kind of get a face and a name and figure out where all the classrooms are, which is always challenging. The next 3 weeks, we would anticipate that we would come in to do formal observations with our computers, with ESS, and again, just an opportunity to seek to understand your school culture, your classroom environments, opportunities just to be in the mix. And then the week of September 23rd is when we anticipate starting formal observations. How that rolls out, we kind of get to figure that out. We're still figuring our denominator of teachers and how we're going to pace our week and all of that. But everybody would have one formal observation in that first semester. So some people may be September, some people may be November, and you get to kind of figure that out. What questions do you have? I'll flip back to timeline.
Can you just mention the 6 schools that you're working with? Because I think there are some around here.
Yep, so you're the 2 Bradfords, Stony Creek, Mount Carbon, Prospect Valley, and Iber are our 6 schools right now. So, and like I said, Tracy really sold it that you guys were participating. So she said you guys have done some work together. So
Yeah.
that's great. So what questions?
When you come in to observe, will it need to be part of our UIP? Like if our UIP is writing, will you be observing as?
And again, that can be a building, what a building determines. At one of my schools last year, the principal said, I want, their UIP was math. She said, I want everybody observation in math. All the teachers knew that, and because it was great baseline data. So that's something that I would say that you guys, as a school could decide that. Yeah. And I think too, it's also, if it is an open-ended, showcase whatever you want. I think that's that piece where you can be that self-reflective practitioner and say, okay, I want to showcase math because it's my strong subject, or I'm really struggling with my guided reading and I want to showcase that so I get more feedback. So.
When you come in for the formal observations, do we fill out a form or do we turn in a lesson plan? How does that work?
Because we are doing a pre-conference, and again, this is where we've yet to kind of iron out the site-by-site decisions. Some schools already have a consistent lesson plan that they're using school-wide, and that's something I don't know if you guys do. For the past 2 years in Strategic Comp, the first year we asked teachers to provide that. The second year we did not, just due to a workload issue, and it was more around the conversation. So if one of us comes in for a pre-conference, let's just talk about your lesson. Didn't necessarily need, beautifully written, word perfect lesson plan for the process. Yeah.
And there are some, and I know some of the intermediate people, I've got that pre-conference form that just has questions that we just talk about. It's not, totally detailed, but it just sort of is a guideline that says, walk me through the lesson.
And I think, Sam, since if you have that form and you're going to use it in the intermediate building, we like to tag on to that just so it's consistent for
Yeah,
teachers.
and it
So
needs some changes
I'd
too.
like to be uniform
Okay.
across, just
Yeah.
to say this is how it's gonna look for everybody, be consistent with it.
Okay, well, and we have plenty of time to iron out that detail, because that's not really until end of September, so
Yeah.
you guys can make that decision as a staff, absolutely. Uh-huh.
So you guys will score just the first 2 categories of the teacher rubric, and then our administrators score the third. So
Correct.
how does Sam and Jean fit into the observations? Do they come with the peer evaluators, or is it just you guys?
So for the 2 formal observations, if you have a principal peer team, Jean would do one semester, and if I'm your peer, I would do one another semester, and we'd figure out in my first or second semester. And I'm forgetting the second part of your question. So does that
So
answer?
they come together.
Yeah,
Oh.
is everybody in the room at the same time, I guess, is my question.
Not
No.
for formal observations,
Okay.
unless that is a request. I mean, I think that's the great thing about this, is we're kind of changing things up a little bit. I think what you will see, I'm pretty confident, I mean, we haven't talked about it, but that you will see peers coming in as a team of two, or a principal peer coming in for some of those informal observations, just because it's a great way for us to calibrate, to sit, watch for 15 minutes, and then quick run out in the hall and kind of debrief, and how would you, what did you see, what evidence, and how does that relate to an indicator on the rubric? So that would be a time that I think you would see two people in your room.
And I am sorry, I have one more.
Nope.
Will it always be the same two evaluators for informal and formal?
Yes, yeah. And once we have, kind of the set list from your two schools, we'll sit down with your administrators and figure out pairings and assignments, and then your principals will make it known to you, here is who you will see. My role is a little bit different. I mean, Shannon and Heidi will be the two main peer evaluators that you will see and work consistently with. I'm working kind of a little bit in an overarching role. So I'm going to be working really closely with them, having done the work before, being kind of that coach on the side to do some calibration. So you'll see me, but I rarely think there'll be three of us in a room. I mean, there might be, if somebody's open to that, that would be a great opportunity for us to calibrate together.
And I think that you had mentioned before, the beauty of it is, it's really, if you want more feedback, then they'll come around more. If not, then, you've got the formal and the informal ones, but they're available to give feedback as much as you like.
Yep.
Right, and I think just one of the things that I would add to that is with the current peer process in our Stratcom schools, they have a fairly heavy caseload. But even with the two times that I was able to shadow them last year, teachers were still able to stop some of those peers in the hallway and just ask them those quick questions that I haven't seen you in 2 days, and I've got this burning quick question that I need to ask you. But one of the things that I think is a huge benefit of what we're doing in the non-Stratcom piece is the caseload is going to be reduced, and it's going to be reduced for a couple of different reasons. But one of the things that I think is going to be key is it's going to allow peers to be able to have more time to either spend with principals, to spend with instructional coach, to spend with teachers, to spend doing whatever that they need to do in order to continue to make sure that the teachers are getting the feedback and the support that they need.
Gina?
Just so we can get the kids ready, will you be talking to the kids and asking them questions, or is it more just observation all around?
So I would say it's a little bit of both. Depending on, if we pop in for an informal and it's a very teacher-directed lesson, obviously we're not going to, but if kids are interacting, I think that's the interesting piece is, as teachers, what did you plan, and then what was received by kids? And so being able to have interactions with some of those kids, yeah. And I think, that's that piece is over time, the teachers that I worked with, you build that relationship and you build, you know which kid not to go to. Or, the kids that you would go to get information from or whatever. So, and I would say that it's just a real natural process. Once, these first couple of weeks it feels funny, but over time, peer evaluators just kind of assimilate into the culture of your room. So.
Is that helpful for us to get our schedules to you so that you kind of know when we're like at specials or doing writer's workshop and all that kind of
You
stuff?
guys are great, yep. And actually, we will, we may just go through your instructional coach so that's not one more thing on your plate, so. And again, we haven't yet ironed out all the logistics on that end, but thank you for thinking forward.
Are we gonna have a chance to go through the rubric before all of this, so we know what's on the rubric?
Yeah, it's out there, we'll get it to you.
It's a
It
It
was
should be,
revised
yeah.
last spring, and again, we were talking just briefly yesterday about it, how it had several points under it, they've streamlined that, so it's just the main points, but it's out on the HR website right now, you can go in and get it, but we'll get that to you, we're gonna get it to everybody.
Well, actually, it may be on there. If you remember last year, I remember going through the online evaluation. Everybody had to go to ESS. And when you go to your evaluations from last year, or the year before if you did it online, you can see the rubric right on ESS. And so the hope is that what they've done is they've already changed that rubric on your ESS. So when you go to your prior evaluations, the rubric is up in the left-hand corner, I think. So it may be there right now. We could actually check probably today to see if that new rubric is,
I know it's on HR, I've downloaded it already.
and it's on
It
HR.
certainly is on the HR website, but also then teachers, and I have no idea, Gene and Sam, what you've, done over the course of the week already with your teachers or not. But then there's also gonna be that opportunity for teachers, and it's just an opportunity, it's not a mandatory issue for teachers, it is for administrators, but not for teachers. There's an opportunity for a self-assessment, for teachers to complete a self-assessment on ESS. And so it's following the kind of the new rubric and those types of things as well. But in addition to the rubric, one of the things that I may have said this in the spring, I just don't remember, one of the things that I really enjoy about this program is the training that the peers receive. So Monday and Tuesday, they, 8 hours a day, so they've been 15, 16 hours of rubric training. When we had the Leadership Expo and I had all the principals in the Bear Creek Library, I think we talked about the rubric for about 2 minutes. There's just so many things that we have to go over with principals that it's just, we cannot possibly provide the depth of training that we need to with principals on every category, or they'd never be in their schools. And one of the things that I really appreciate about this peer program is that they quickly are able to become the experts because we're able to provide the intense training around some of those different categories and components.
And I think because it is new work around the rubric, it's a great opportunity for us to pair with your instructional coaches to say, this is what we've seen in other buildings that worked as far as the rollout of the rubric and what indicators, and matching the rubric to the look-fors, which are also on the HR website.
Those are great.
So did you catch that piece of it? Along with the rubric is another rubric, and inside of it says, this is the rubric, and then these are the look-fors that would, if you're accomplishing this, this is what it would look like with kids or in your classroom. So that's very helpful, and that's on that site too. So we'll get that out to you guys. Make sure.
Right, and some people have already seen the look-fors, I think, or, from last year, so they've redone those. Great.
So will we have evaluations independent from the peer evaluations, or is this
This
our
is your
live?
This is it.
This is it.
So there will be no more of the 3-year process evaluation?
Every teacher is evaluated every year. So it's whether you're, and again, this year, not this year, but go the year next down, it's live. Everybody's evaluation, remember we said counts?
This is
year,
rehearsal.
this is a great growth producing year. And the beauty of this is the work that we're doing, except for probationary teachers with that, but it's a year where that growth producing, it doesn't go into, I don't know the words you'd say, it's a practice year, would be that, but it's a growth, I see it as what we talked about yesterday, a growth producing year. It's a great way for us to get that actionable, timely, feedback. We talked about that yesterday.
Yesterday,
That was the point that we were talking about yesterday, and it's a great way to get that, and get that feedback, and then the following year, we go live.
Hold harmless, was the term we
Hold
used.
harmless.
How involved will our coaches be?
So, that's something that we're, do you want to speak to that?
Let me try and address that. That's an ongoing conversation because in our Stratcom schools, we have additional staffing. We have the master teacher and the mentor teacher in addition to everything else going on in those schools. And so that's one of the other reasons why I really want the caseload for the non-Stratcom peers to be lower, because we have to start going down that road of figuring out what that relationship is going to look like. Because there's just so many more resources in the Stratcom schools that without those same resources, we want to make sure that we're having the conversations that we need to, because the goal is still being able to provide the support for the teacher. And so if that's, again, more opportunity for conversations with the principals, with the coaches, with teachers, with different groups, that's just going to be one of those ongoing working things that we have to figure out, and that's why I wanted to keep it lower as well, so that they can have additional conversations as needed with those coaches.
But I will say, I think, to piggyback on what Todd said, having been an instructional coach, oftentimes it's a very global job. It's like whoever wants to come to me and work with me, and this, because you are receiving growth producing feedback that is specific, or we hope is specific, right? We're working really hard on that. What I saw for the past 2 years is that a teacher would take that feedback or sit down with a coach or a master teacher or something and say, hey, can you provide me some resources around higher level thinking? Or, gosh, I need to firm up my classroom management, or whatever it was. And so it gave that specificity of the thing to improve practice and then increase student achievement. So.
I would hope, in a dream world, that look at the number of people in here, and the amount of feedback, and the coaches as resources, and then the principals be involved, that out of this comes some actionable items like in our staff development. Saying, you know what, hey, a large number of people are talking about the guided writing, and how do we set that up, and how do we actually conference, and what's an effective conference look like, and then that drives what we're doing in our staff development. With that, that's my hope.
Well, and I think the other thing that I saw was that, being in, having that school-wide view of saying, oh my gosh, you should go see what's happening in 4th grade in guided writing, or whatever it was. And then the coach would come in, cover the classroom, so that then teachers could then go off and see colleagues. So what I found is that it really built that collective intelligence as a staff of, because, you guys are all doing great stuff, but it was also building that capacity within the staff. Mm-hmm.
So I was under the impression that this is a 2-year agreement. So if we go through 1 year and we decide we don't like it, that sucks. We have to do another year. I mean.
Oh, we got Todd. Yeah.
Again, I think I started this off by saying the doors are now locked.
Sorry. I know.
We get that. One of the things that StratComp has been working hard on is to figure out what is going well in their own schools. But part of what StratComp has been working very hard on, and I'm working with them, is trying to figure out what we can take out of StratComp that we can replicate in our non-StratComp schools. And so this is our first attempt going down this road. Do I have the funds for a 2-year program? Absolutely. Would we like for this to continue for 2 years with not only this group but everybody else that decided they didn't want to opt in? Absolutely. Are we open to flexibility and change? Absolutely. We have no idea. We believe that what we've seen over the past couple of years in our StratComp schools, that this program is providing the right support for our teachers. If it's not, then we need to readjust. Otherwise, we're not using our resources in the right place. So I would love to say that no, absolutely, you're locked in, but that's not the right language. We need to be working with our schools and working with teachers the best we can.
What other questions? Mm-hmm.
Will you be asking to see anything when you come in, or are you just observing the craft?
So that's a great question. There's a couple of, as you look at the Jeffco rubric, there's a few of the indicators that some of them are not observable in a full lesson, or so some of that, I'll be honest, really, as a peer evaluator, I would come back to the teacher and say, tell me more about, show me, and so that was an opportunity to sit down and have a conversation. Oftentimes, if you've worked with an administrator for many years, that administrator has that knowledge about you. And so I could go to the principal, or if we were the co-evaluators, that principal already knew. So I think it just depends.
Okay.
But it's definitely, for a peer evaluator, it's seeking to understand. So some of the items on that rubric are observable and some are not.
Okay. So it's nothing like I'm thinking of something silly, just like if there's a student who, I've been asking, I've been asking you about, but when you say, can I see your logs on parent communication with this parent from September through, like something like that, like documentation?
Sure.
Will you be asking for?
Yep, and that one actually, if it's about communication, we wouldn't evaluate.
Okay.
Because that would be in your section 3. That's something
That's
that your
professional
principal would
responsibilities,
Okay,
yeah.
gotcha. You're right, I'm sorry.
But if it's, you're working from a specific resource or something, and you've been, that would be something that maybe we would come back and ask for.
Yeah, you use the word craft, and I think that's really where your focus is on the craft of the teaching instruction.
Yes.
And so a lot of the details about some of the other professional responsibilities, not the main focus of what you guys want to do. You want to really want, it's that collaboration piece. It really is having somebody to talk to.
Is this a program that will continue with funding ideally? Or is this something that in 2 years will?
One of the things that I'm working on this year, one of the things that Carrie's going to help me work on this year, and one of the things that Heidi and Shannon are also going to help us work on this year, is trying to answer that particular question. And a piece of it is, if we rolled out the StratComp model, not with the masters and mentors, but just the ratios of how many peer evaluators we have for every teacher, district-wide, it would be somewhere around $4 million a year on the budget. It's not doable. And so what we have to start having conversations about is what is doable. Who do we work with? Why do we work with them? Where's the impact? What's the results? And start having conversations about absolutely that particular long-term answer. And that's going to be one of the things that Dr. Stevenson is going to add to my plate heavily this year.
Some districts, they did away with the grant money, and then it moved into the school, right? And then the teachers within the school became the peer evaluators.
Right, and so one of the, certainly there's a lot of peer evaluator models around the nation, and several of them have that people in their own buildings are evaluating other people in your building. Now, there's a lot of research that says, outstanding, that's great. And there's just as much research that says, how horrible. How can you possibly be embedded in your culture and go down the hall and evaluate somebody right next door? And so I'm not sure that there's a right or wrong answer to some of those, but those are absolutely what we have to continue to figure out. Because it has to be sustainable district-wide, absolutely.
Good question. I feel the excitement. It's coming through the cabinets into.
So if there are lingering questions that pop up, Todd always offers his email, or you can email me, I can read that, or Heidi or Shannon, that can field any question that comes up, because we understand that this is a paradigm shift, this is a change in practice, and at times those changes feel uncomfortable. And please know that we feel that too on the other end of knowing we're pushing into a place that it's new, and so we really, I go back to Shannon's slide around that collaboration, we really view this as a shared opportunity to work with you and be with you and spend time in your rooms.
Are there any, you've done this for a while now, so testimonials or comments from colleagues about their feelings about how it's worked for them and sort of how they've evolved with the program. I know it might be nice for them to hear from other teachers about how it's worked for them.
Thinking when Todd and I came out in the spring, the survey data that's been collected in the 20 strategic hunt schools was that 75 to 80% of the teachers felt that the peer program enhanced their practice, changed their practice. So I think from those numbers, that was kind of the offshoot of why are we doing this if people are saying this is an important piece. I think thinking of the close to 200 teachers that I worked with, the high percentage of teachers that really found value in it were those self-reflective practitioners. And my gut says that by opting into this and you being here today, you are that pool of people that, you do a lesson and then you go home and think, oh, I should have done it this way, or, but oftentimes in our world of education, that isolation, you are the only self-check of that. So your skill set only increases as much as you've read professionally or you've talked with colleagues or whatever. And we're saying this is the outside lens, this is the district lens that brings that. And I think in the spring I also had said that what's fun in this position that we hope to share with you is that having been in multiple buildings, to be able to say, okay, seeing a third grade math lesson today, gosh, I saw that yesterday. This is how that teacher did it, or this is, it's bringing those little bit of snippets from not just Bradford, but from multiple schools to increase practice.
Thank you guys very much.
Thank you for your time.
Thanks, appreciate it.